Hi everyone, big welcome back to the G2Z online series. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for your patience this morning. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. My name's Nell Thompson and I'm the coordinator of the National Getting to Zero, or as we call it, G2Z program. I'll be hosting the webinar for you today and hopefully it'll be smooth sailing from here on in. Getting to Zero was developed by the Animal Welfare League of Queensland and they continue to support it to this day. G2Z offers its consulting, support and educational services at no charge to local governments and to not-for-profits across Australia. Our focus continues to be on companion animal welfare and management issues such as strategy, legislation, operations, programs, and community engagement, working towards reducing intake into pounds and shelters and keeping pets in their homes. We invite people to take a look at our website at g2z.org.au, sign up for our regular e-news, connect with us via social media, and get in contact with us to see if we can help or just have a chat about the issues that are facing your community or organisation. And so to today's session. Once I hand over to our presenter, there'll be around 50 minutes of presentation time and around 10 minutes of question time once the presentation is concluded. The recording of this webinar will be accessible via our website to everyone to watch anytime. We're going to ask that everyone mutes themselves during the presentation unless our presenter indicates otherwise. If you have questions, you can start putting them in the Q&A section and we'll get through as many as we can at the end of the session. If you have very quick questions that relate to your understanding of the content, put your hand up. There's a little button down the bottom of the screen and we'll try to get to them during the presentation. As always, please excuse working from home background noises that may filter through. It is my great honour to introduce Amy Sadler to you all today for the first in a set of 3 presentations. Unfortunately, you're not going to see the lovely Amy Sadler because her camera's not working, but her presentation is, so that's the main thing. And as I said, we have 2 other presentations after this that we will get to see her. Amy is the founder and CEO of Dogs Playing for Life, or DPFL. With 35 years of experience working with multiple species in varying venues, Amy's become an internationally recognised trainer and speaker, specialising in shelter programs that enhance quality of life and reduce canine euthanasia in animal shelters. The cornerstone of DPFL's programming is the Every Dog, Every Day, an out-of-kennel enrichment model that is increasing demand and has been introduced to over 300 shelters across the US and Canada. DPFL's measured programming is contributing to safer shelter environments by reducing dog-to-human bites while increasing canine life-saving at an average rate of 4% at participating shelters. Starting in 2017, dogs most at risk of behavioural euthanasia can get a second chance at DPFL's Canine Centre, Florida, an advanced training and behaviour care centre with an overall save rate of 86%. Amy has regularly presented at animal welfare and professional dog training conferences, such as the HSUS Animal Care Expo, Best Friends Annual Conference, Masters in Behaviour Conference, and the International Association of Canine Professionals Conferences. DPFL was the inaugural recipient of Petco Foundation's Love in Action Award. In 2016, DPFL was featured in episode 4 of the PBS television series Shelter Me. And Amy is a proud recipient of the Henry Berg Leadership Award and the Maddie's Hero Award, and has been inducted into the Members Hall of Fame for the IACP. So with that, over to you, Amy.
Thank you so much, Nella. And I'm so, I'm grateful for always a camera that's not working because it doesn't reveal my bad hair day, but I promise you, if you join me on the next one, you will see my bad hair days. So we're going to jump right in because we're a little bit behind. We're going to jump right in because we're a little bit behind. Here we go. And this the first part of the series is really getting into the nitty-gritty of why we focus so much on playgroups for our core enrichment programming. And I mean, this is our mission, that we are redefining the meaning and importance of quality of life for all shelter dogs by improving their experience through playgroups and individualized training, resulting in urgent and responsible life saving. And we really want to focus on supporting shelters to function as a safe haven for lost and surrendered companion animals. Excuse me, I'm going to slow down. To make sure that we're helping shelters to provide resources that are going to enhance quality of life. And that's a big deal for us. We feel like for so long, we've been focusing on saving lives that we've kind of missed the target of making sure that their experience while we're trying to help them isn't so hard on them. So we really think that if you focus on quality of life, you're going to get to the life saving automatically. But sometimes if we reverse that, we can end up in a little bit of a sticky wicket. We definitely want to help save as many lives as possible, but not at the expense of people or the community. And, you know, being on top of what's the latest and greatest and research guides our work, we want to be good educators and be sharing the good stuff that's going to move us forward and help us to be progressive. So our every dog, every day model sometimes has been misinterpreted to mean that we expect every dog in a sheltered environment to go to playgroup no matter what every day. That's not exactly what we were getting at. What we mean is that we want every dog in every shelter to get quality out of kennel enrichment time. And when you're dealing with high volume municipal shelters in particular, where they have hundreds of dogs on the ground, what we learned is that there's not many ways to do that if you're not going to be incorporating playgroups and giving all those dogs a chance to at least get out there and show you how they feel about it. So, I mean, we feel like dogs live to play. We want them to play to live. And the bottom line for us, everything revolves around let's satiate them first. There's so much behavior that we see in kennels that can be troubling, but we just really have to wrap our brains around that. Even when we have these nice, beautiful shelters, they're companion animals, and they're not in homes with us, and they're socially isolated and all the stuff that comes with that. So we have to sometimes really think about how much impact is that. Are they behaving this way just because of the circumstance itself? And we like to think of ourselves as good camp counselors, like they're at summer camp with us. We are not their family. This is happening here in the States a lot, where we have animals that are kind of ending up warehoused in shelters, because of course the good news is we don't want to euthanize like we were euthanizing before, but the animals are just hanging out in conditions that are pretty hard on them, and we're just trying to love them through it. Sometimes that's just not quite enough. So we want to be cool camp counselors. They come hang out with us for a short period of time. We teach them some arts and crafts, some new skills, and then they get to go on and fall in love and become a part of a family. So I'll share a video with you. Where we go from here, where we go from here, where we go. Okay, so that is what we are striving for, to get all those dogs out and having a good time. Try to get past those meeting controls. Sorry, I hope that you're not seeing a bunch of black bars covering the screen. Nell, if that is the case, let me know. But so ultimately, I think that we all have known this for so long intuitively, that happier dogs are healthier dogs, and healthier dogs are more adoptable dogs. So we have these ASB guidelines for the standards of care, and these 5 freedoms that we're supposed to be ensuring, that we're supposed to assure. I'm so sorry. It's not the morning here, it's the evening. We want to make sure that this is being provided to all of our animals that are in our shelters. The one that we've got in yellow, they're all equally important, but the one in yellow, the freedom to express normal behavior is the ticket for us. That's what we're trying to really get to, and letting dogs be dogs. And that can be really hard in a kennel environment. So I'm going to share with you an experience that we had a couple of years back. We went into one of the largest facilities in the country, and we were basically trying to do some research to find out if there was nothing provided for these dogs as far as basic enrichment. They didn't even have a dog walking program, and we just installed Playgroups. What would the results be? And the ASPCA was behind us for this. And for a number of reasons, they ended up doing construction in the middle of the time that we were there. And so it kind of blew the research aspect of it. But here we were on the ground getting this started, and I can share with you what that experience was like.
Animal care and control in Downey, and in the name of saving more lives, which we want to do. While we absolutely want to save lives, keeping animals like this, not the animal care and control. This is just standard care. This is one of the most behaviorally deteriorating, emotionally deteriorating, health deteriorating situations we can keep dogs in. So the purpose of what we do is we go to shelters and we teach them that when they're in this situation of having to house animals like this, especially in high volume, this is the largest animal care and control facility in the United States, serving approximately 70,000 animals a year between all of their facilities. This is one of 7. And this is what we are meant to do. We would much rather see animals being cared for and enriched like this. Our motto is every dog, every day, so that we can help to combat what happens in there and turn it into some kind of joy out here, so that we learn more about the dogs, that we understand them better, and that they have a fighting chance, especially in a high volume facility like this.
So what's really important for us, we've worked with over 330 shelters in the United States and in Canada. And the shelters are all a little bit different. Sometimes we're working with sometimes we're working with sanctuaries that only take in maybe 100 animals a year. And then of course we've worked with the largest in the country. So what's really important is considering context, mission, and resources. We don't believe that there's a one size fits all program. We believe in the concept of playgroups to help you get to an every dog, every day model, but there are other playgroup programs. It doesn't have to just be dogs playing for life. But the bottom line is, depending upon your mission or your function, how much time your staff has, what level of volunteer support you have, what kind of facility you have. In that video that you just saw, they didn't have play yards. Those were just temporary yards that were put up for the purpose of us running that experiment. And those yards remained and they stayed, and playgroups are thriving and running at that facility every day since. They didn't stop once we left. Obviously, resource limitations. How much money does everybody have? None of us ever have enough money. Handling and training skill sets with the staff and the volunteers, and then medical resources. All of these components are going to roll into your decision about what kind of core enrichment programming you need to have to adequately attend to your dogs. But this is all part of it too. And so for us, the playgroups are one of the programs that is going to give you the best bang for your buck. We consider playgroups an enrichment tool, an assessment tool, a training tool, and a behavior modification tool, all in this one activity. The primary reasons is that for dog-to-dog issues, we think that dogs are better at being dogs than we are, and they can be much more effective teachers than people can be about dog-to-dog interactions. So just going to share videos because, I can talk to you all day long, but the dogs kind of, I think, tell a better story.
It's the cutest freaking thing I've ever seen. The important thing for Poppy is that we don't have her with a dog she's met a bad experience with, because she needs to kind of learn that it's not as scary as you think. Did she had any bad experiences when she was with you? No. Yeah. Poppy's trying to show her how to play. Now, and the reason I'm not interfering or saying anything is because they're doing fine with each other. She's trying to work out how to communicate. And Poppy's not being mean to her at all. So the best thing when you're doing dog-to-dog stuff You really want it to be about dog to dog. So for me as a handler, if I get in there and I'm kind of micromanaging them, they're not going to learn how to respond to one another the same way. Yeah. Poppy, enough. Poppy, enough. Enough. Good girl. I'm actually going to take your leash off you because you don't need it. Poppy, you are like my kind of dog, man.
So, sorry, I went too fast. So Poppy there, that little corgi was a privately owned dog that came into our shelter for a dog aggression assessment because she was very on-leash reactive when they were walking around the neighborhood. And as I was explaining there, Poppy, you know, we had a little corgi and then we had a little pit bull dog from the shelter, and our little pit bull dog was trying to help little corgi relax and have fun. And what we were able to share with the owner, and if you notice, I just sat and held the camera and was yakking and let Poppy do all the work. The owner felt so relieved that her dog was actually not dog aggressive. She was actually just really nervous, and Poppy was a little bit too playful for her. So what we ended up doing was setting up some gentle and dainty play groups for her corgi and slowly eased her in. And we told her, no, she definitely could make dog friends for sure. She's just insecure and a little bit defensive. And the mom was so relieved. And then she joined our on-leash reactivity class. So she learned how not to make all the common mistakes that people make when their dogs are on-leash reactive. And but Poppy was the one that earned the, you know, she's the one that earned the $75 for that dog aggression assessment for the shelter, because I think she could do a much better job. I don't think there's anything that I could have done to help that corgi feel better about interacting with a dog than Poppy did. And just to let you know, obviously the video goes on longer and the little corgi ends up really relaxing much, much more. But I thought that was so adorable when Poppy brought her out of the corner by her leash. So the mental and physical outlet of playgroups definitely can create higher receptivity to training. And this is actually what brought me to introducing playgroups to shelters in the first place, because I had been asked by a client of mine to go down to the shelter. She was paying me for my time to go try to help a couple of the shelter dogs. And it was hard for me to just try to tend to a few. I wanted to help all 36 that were in that kennel at that time. And because I was comfortable with dog-to-dog play, I asked permission. Can I just get them all out and let them get their yayas out and play first? Because then, you know, when you go into the shelter and the dogs are stressed or frustrated or really fearful or anxious, and, you know, you try to go in with treats, and half the time they don't even want your treats because they're too anxious at that time. So you've got to get them out and let them feel more comfortable. And then that way, when I ran the dogs all through playgroups, I could identify which ones were still struggling, and then I would focus more targeted training on the ones that couldn't cope better just from getting out and playing and having a good time. So here's a quick example of, this was at the first shelter that I started doing playgroups. These are all dogs that were on leash reactive when they were first in the shelter. And we've got a couple of our training staff, a couple of volunteers, and then we also have a shadow student in this group. And I'm only showing this because this is really basic training. This is not advanced training, but we all know that this can be pretty feels difficult to achieve. Getting a bunch of shelter dogs in close proximity to one another and doing something that looks pretty decent and mannerly. And what I can tell you is that this is much easier to get to when all the dogs have been out in playgroups in the morning. These were their afternoon training sessions and they'd already gone to playgroups in the morning. So as a quick example for you. Boy, I'm sorry, it keeps advancing me faster than I mean to. And then here's an example.
Kate is here from Baltimore Humane. She's working Nina. And she just did the kennel routine nicely. Very nice. So Nina shows you she understands getting to the door means that I'm going to sit. Should be able to open that door. She should be able to do this for you, but you know, you'll deal with it if she makes a mistake. Nice. Great. Good. Nice.
And again, the point of sharing that with you is that training Nina to do that routine for a total stranger is much easier to do when she's been able to be satiated and get all of her energy out in a really healthy and positive way. And that's via playgroups, because she loved her playgroups. So the training sessions became much easier. And then obviously when dogs are rowdy and frustrated, and we've got the jumpy mouthies that are in our kennels, what's considered very inappropriate engagement with people is very natural between the dogs. So let the dogs be dogs.
Okay, it's March 4th, and this is Coney and Nikki, 2 Hurricane Sandy dogs that were transferred to us from the ASPCA. Under those original circumstances, they had done poorly on their dog-to-dog assessments. So they were transferred to us since we're good with dog-to-dog stuff. And it's just, of course, cool that we have them playing with each other. So Michelle and I from HSSV, she's here on her internship, are discussing all this playing and grabbing and
biting each other's limbs and dragging each other around by the neck, why do we choose not to interrupt that? The reason being is that, yeah, it was a nice break, is that are they practicing killing each other, or are they practicing bite inhibition and appropriate social skills? So our theory is they're practicing appropriate social skills. And that they're learning, and might one of them like pinch the other one, make each other mad, might they get into an argument for a second? Yeah, it happened. But they're showing us that their intention is to play. So that's our theory and why we don't micromanage. And we did, child's over there. And then the other thing about this too is that for me, so I feel like if you keep inhibiting them, okay. So because we don't inhibit them, right? This is obviously what dogs do. If we just stay out of it, right? And you've seen it all morning with lots and lots and lots of dogs. So if this is obviously what dogs do when they're playing robustly and the way that they want to play without people micromanaging them, then would it stand to reason that you would want dogs to learn the skills of playing this way and calming themselves down and responding to each other while they're in the state of play, right?
Oh, sorry.
That's just the logical. So instead, if they have trouble and it turns into an argument or one of them is inappropriate, then we deal with that behavior rather than trying to micromanage and inhibit them from being dogs. Okay. That's kind of the theory behind it. Because all of this body language and these gestures are just showing us like good play, good bite inhibition, good start stop stuff. Yeah, good communication overall. Yeah. And that it's mutual play. Nobody seems distressed while one's not having fun at the expense of another. You know, it's mutual. That is the point.
And we get into all of that in so much more depth in the next two parts of this series. So hopefully that's a little inspiring for you guys to get into it a little bit more with us. So playgroups can provide definitely an enhanced quality of life for most kennel dogs. This is not necessarily true for all kennel dogs, but we do really encourage you to give them all a chance to get out there and show you how they feel about playgroups and not kind of projecting them upon them. So at this shelter, most of the 90% of the dogs that were brought up, we were told, were dog aggressive because they were so reactive. They were expected to mute this. They were expected to keep their dogs very far away from each other normally. They'd had a volunteer had been badly injured by a redirection, and so they were pretty pent up.
Okay, so she's reactive in the kennel, right? Look at Stewie, like, oh my God, slow down. Wow. Oh! She's like sailing on. Did you see that? Oh my God, that's hysterical. Oh my God, it's all playful. No, this is a dog that it is a disservice for her not to have playgroups, you know? Like this playgroups are gonna change this dog's life here. You know? Oh my God, yeah.
And being in playgroup can definitely create the most natural environment. You know, dog to dog stuff, again, let dogs be dogs, for overcoming fearful behavior, anxious behavior, and even aggressive behavior and super reactive behavior. And I think this is one of the biggest things that's hard to help people overcome, because they might see a dog not come into playgroup and look like a perfectly social dog right away. And they tend to want to interrupt and not allow the dogs to just kind of have the experience and unfold in front of you. So again, we get into that a lot more as we move on.
I gotta say right now, Chris just did a collar grab on this dog. And today was the first time he came out to playgroup because he wouldn't let anybody near him in the kennel, right? Yeah. Yeah, and you can see he's a little uncomfortable. Actually, Ken, earlier today, didn't he muzzle punch you when you tried to reach for him? Yeah. So that's 2 playgroups, and he's much more handleable as a result of that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, again, you can see that little dog wasn't comfortable, but before he had huge distance-seeking behavior and was lunging and trying to keep everybody away. So that was fast progress for that. We always want to consider the difference between stress versus distress. Stress is part of adaptation. If it is chronic or acute, then that can kick us into distress, and that's when we start to have even more. Stress can cause physiological changes, But distress is when we're really interrupting the process of learning anything good, the good stuff. I mean, distress is when we're basically in severe fight or flight mode. And so we have to just accept that the dogs being in the shelters in the first place is going to be stressful for them. And what can we do to help them cope and thrive and adapt? And how can we expand the possibility of resiliency for them instead of maybe keeping them kind of stuck where they are? And anything that we're trying to do on their behalf, which includes playgroups, we don't want to put dogs into distress in the process of what we're trying to do to help them. There's a big difference though between those two things. So the organizational benefits, like we just talked about what's good for dogs from a behavioral perspective, why you would want to do playgroups just for the dogs. But let's just say you're an executive director and you're thinking, wow, I think that this program represents a lot of risk. And so why would I be incentivized to install a program like this? Well, you're going to get much more accurate assessments about the dogs in your care, which means you probably are going to be doing better with regards to placing dogs into the community that your community can bear. Because what we absolutely know for sure is that on-leash assessments or assessing a dog's behavior behind a barrier are not reliable predictors of the dog's ability or inability to be social with other dogs. And we've got a bunch of examples of that. I'm probably only going to go show 2 of these for the sake of time.
Okay, this is Cindy. Allie, tell me about her.
She got a 4 on her dog to dog, her safer, which is the worst score you could get. Rushing, growling, stiff body, high tail, and that's as much information as we have on
That's as much information as we have. She got a 4. Okay. Come, Mama. So she got the worst. She got the worst possible grade on the evaluation, which the conclusion is that she's not good with other dogs. So her adoption opportunities are restricted based upon the advice as a result of that test. What do you guys think of that? She's super playful, right? So why do we think she scored so badly on her test? What's that about? What do we think that is? Probably the other dog. Maybe the other dog? What about the handling? All the tension that we cause the way we handle the dogs on leash, maybe. She's super cute. She's all about cuteness. She's all about cuteness.
So she ended up being adopted. She was at risk of euthanasia because she was not considered good with dogs based upon the assessment. At risk, she wasn't on the euthanasia list, but if it came down to it and they were starting to pile up and they would start to look at that, she was adopted really quickly. And she actually stayed out all day long and played with, she literally met almost every dog in the house. She played with the gentle and dainties. The next day we had to give her a break because her pads had gotten sore from running around on the concrete, but she was a super, super social dog. So that the assessment completely missed it for her. So this is from APA, and this dog's name is Tony. So obviously this is another day. They brought him out for the first time and they sent him away due to that reactivity and the way the other dogs were responding. This is pretty serious, right? That reactivity looks pretty gnarly, so they did muzzle him. All right, I think you guys get the gist of that one. So that was Tony from APA, and basically we get into so much more detail in the next parts of the series about how to make decisions about when to bring a dog in, when to muzzle them, when to take the muzzle off and everything. But the purpose of sharing that video with you is that I think most of us would look at that behavior and just call it and say, well, he's clearly dog aggressive. And what we've learned is that you just cannot come to that determination only by on-leash assessments or by assessing their behavior behind a barrier. You can also maximize your resources. Two people can attend to many more dogs in groups than handling individually. For example, when I first arrived at the Longmont Humane Society, my friend and I went in and she would run dogs to me and I would sit in the play groups and I could run 65 to 80 dogs at about 2.5 hours. We did that twice a day, every day. And then I did individual training sessions in between with the dogs that were still struggling. And if you took the dogs, so let's say a 10-minute walk, it would take approximately 6 hours to rotate them once. So it's much more efficient. Here's an example of, I'm going to mute this video.
I'm at the Indiana.
This is when we went to Indianapolis Animal Care and Control, but look at that yard setup. I've never seen another facility with play yards that were as amazing as these. This afforded us the chance to get every single dog on their adoption floor out at the same time, even the ones that were not appropriate with dogs, that even had some covered pens. You see there's some places to put individual dogs. The gentleman that was cleaning those kennels, it normally took him about 6 to 6.5 hours to clean adopts, and he'd been doing it for something like 20 years. And that day when they allowed us to come in early in the morning and the volunteers that were participating in the seminar with us, they volunteered to come in and help us get it done. And he was done cleaning in under 2 hours. Oops, geez, I keep hitting the wrong buttons. So sorry. Okay. Go. Ooh, is that it for over here? That is it for over here. More organizational benefits that, especially with the pandemic, we started sending dogs out fast and furiously in the United States to foster homes. And so we were frantic to get that done because we were basically closing down. You know, people weren't coming into the shelters. And so we had to have a place for the animals to go, especially because intake hadn't necessarily stopped. So the question was on our survey is, did you feel like you had a better chance of placing dogs into appropriate foster homes as a result of what you learned from running your play groups? And 78% of the respondents said yes. And that obviously better adoption matches as well, because the more you know about the dogs, then the more you can match them. Like a family that wants to maybe go to the dog park with their dogs or out to the beach with their dogs or has other dogs in the home, you can clearly say, these dogs have demonstrated here at our shelter that they enjoy going to play groups and they enjoy being in the company of other dogs. So that's a really great place to start for the adopters that want to have a very social, dog-to-dog social life with their dogs. Let's see what this video is.
She has been one of our playgroup rock stars. We have used her as a helper dog for all of our large, boisterous dogs. And we decided that we wanted to try her, test her with the small dogs because she has been so beautifully social. And what great advertisement for her. She's been here a long time. So these are all opportunities for her. They can just market her so well. If they can say, wow, she's even great with the small dogs.
We always want to say exactly what we know. And Sita, the big brindle girl in there, that's what I'm talking about. She'd been at the Toronto Humane Society for 11 months. She was kept in a very kind of exclusive room because she was so reactive coming in and out of the kennels. Curiously, she was not that reactive once she got outside of the kennels, but they of course had labeled her dog aggressive, and she had so many adopters that were interested in her, and they kept being turned away saying she couldn't live with another dog. So she was adopted in under 2 weeks after we'd been there to demonstrate that they were off base on that judgment of her. So basically, playgroups does equal placement, whether it's foster placement or adoption placement. And then let's talk about some behavioral benefits. Oh, I thought that such a ditz. I thought we had done this already. The physical outlet, exercise, and mental stimulation the dogs experience when they're out bouncing around together is amazing. You know, I think that, you know, just like anything, when you really get them to, if you're chucking the ball for them for 20 minutes, that's going to satiate them and wear them out a lot faster than you just trying to take them for a straight walk. And then also all the mental energy that is burned through intensive social interaction, you know, it's tiresome for them in a good way. And then, you know, they are pack animals, so to speak. They are supposed to be living in social groups and everything. So pack-like bonding versus social isolation, obviously it's so intuitive, can minimize behavioral deterioration, right? This was adorable.
This little female. Well, yeah, no, it's a good one. this little tan female back here is like a pancake dog with people, scared to death with people. And so she just came out, and we're using Mateo, who's the bomb-proof dog here, to show us how she feels about dogs. Apparently, she knows that she's a dog. It was adorable because she was so scared with people, and that was putting her at risk. She was in a high volume open admission shelter, you know, and she was just cowering and shaking in the back of her kennel, and people didn't want to traumatize her and make her come out. And we just kind of got her out of the kennel and got her to playgroups, and that she blossomed and opened up so quickly. And she was at risk for euthanasia because they didn't think that she was going to be able to go on walks with people because she was so afraid. And rapid behavior modification can be accomplished by giving dogs exposure to playgroups. This one's pretty dynamic. So this little dog, Swiffer, I'm just demonstrating here that he's one of those catatonically afraid dogs. He also had no defense. So you're going to see me go into the kennel with him. I have treats on the ground, and that's just me demonstrating that, of course, food is not going to help this dog right now. He's just so terrified. Me being in there is just traumatizing for him. I did end up, I'm just demonstrating here how catatonic he is, like how afraid he is, and how he has no defense. He's fully cornered, and he's not even trying to bite me when I'm petting him, and he probably should have tried to bite me. So dogs like this, we all definitely want to help. I did end up picking him up and carrying him out to the play yards, and he did urinate and defecate. And the reason he was on a stray hold, and at that time we were supposed to leave the dogs for, I think it was 7 days, and he'd been with us for 2 whole days, and we hadn't seen him move. We knew he hadn't eaten anything. We suspected he hadn't had anything to drink, and he had not eliminated. So we just felt that it was inhumane to keep him in the kennel. So I got permission from the director of operations to just try to get him out. And now you'll see the transformation for him from his experience with playgroups. You see, he's like, looks like he doesn't even know how to walk on leash. Just kind of doing whatever I need. I did carry him for a while, but then went through the kennel because I didn't want him to have to go by the barking dogs. But when I got outside, I was trying to at least let him walk on his own. He wasn't good at that.
You were just shoplifted. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty nice and handy.
Smart dog.
It's very convenient. Well, at least she stood up. You had to get someone from the ground up to motivate her.
Somebody lower than him.
Uh-huh.
So we're just doing our regular morning playgroups now. And I started with Swiffer. I gave Swiffer and that's why he was named Swiffer, is because they literally would push him from side to side to clean for the first couple of days. And that's why they named him Swiffer. Anyway, I was just loading up the yards with the social dogs, and I started with the gentle ones that I knew weren't going to be too much or too overwhelming, but ones that would be dogs and investigate him and try to show him that, hey, dude, you know, we're just out here to meet you and everything. So Swiffer is clearly still anxious and afraid, but not.
Of the healer's first social session lasted about an hour or a little bit more, and she wouldn't walk on the leash, had to be carried, had to be dragged out to the play yard, and now as you can see, she's walking just fine.
So this is like the day 2 of playgroups, and notice he's not under the bench where we had originally seen him. He's out to the front of his kennel. And then on the next video, you see, again, looks like a totally different dog out of playgroup, just getting better and better every day. But it was stunning to me. Obviously, after the first hour of playgroups, it's not that he didn't know how to walk on leash. He just was too afraid to walk on leash under those circumstances. So it was just nice to see him coming out of his shell. And what we always explain to people is, if you notice, I'm not trying to befriend him so much. I'm just being relatively neutral, but he seems to think I'm the coolest thing since sliced bread. And we think that that's because all the other dogs seem to behave like I'm pretty cool. So if you have like a dog that's behaving like an outlier, and if you put it, I don't know, it would seem logical, you put an animal that's not behaving normally and you put them in with a bunch of animals for that species that are behaving the way that species would typically behave, then you would think that the one that's not behaving normally is going to adjust, right? The rest of them aren't going to start acting like the chicken one. So that's kind of what we're going for. And here's the other thing with Swiffer. People commonly make this mistake with fearful dogs in shelters, is that they'll try to kind of let the dog hyper bond to one person. So as soon as Swiffer was walking with me and acting like a normal dog with me, then I wasn't handling him anymore, and I made sure that other people took him to and from playgroups. So he was starting to learn that, oh, people aren't scary. I didn't want him to think that I wasn't scary. I wanted him to think that people weren't scary. So you can see he's nervous with Lisa here, because she was a novel handler for him, and she takes him out and he's like, I want to stay with my pack over here. But she just kind of goes with him, and he's starting to figure it out. He got adopted really quickly, and he got adopted so he was on our adoption floor right at the end of his stray hold. So, it was a 5-day stray hold at that time. So it was 3 days of playgroups, and he went from being catatonic and afraid to walking on a leash for multiple people. And he, of course, is a beautiful little dog and sweet, sweet, sweet. So he was adopted really quickly. So normally it takes a lot longer to turn fearful dogs like that around. So playgroups can really help speed up your process. So this is, again, another novel handler that this was the last day of his stray hold. So when he went out with this novel handler to his playgroup and he walked out of his kennel on his own, he ended up walking from the playgroup onto the adoption floor. Okay. Less barrier activity. I think we just watched Tony's video, and that is really dynamic. So I'm going to skip this on-leash reactivity video because I'm afraid that we're going to run out of time. The other thing, so when you implement playgroups, it's not going to guarantee that you will no longer have on-leash reactivity in your facility, but you should see a pretty remarkable decrease in the level of reactivity, the dog-to-dog reactivity for sure. And then if you're in the position where you are trying to co-house dogs at all, for whatever your reason, whether you need to do it temporarily because you've got more dogs in your care than you have kennels for, and so you just have to double them up maybe for a weekend so that you can get a bunch of them out. That happens to us over here quite frequently. Or if we would co-house dogs for quality of life, if they would be more content having a companion in their kennel, then we wanted to give them that for their quality of life. It's obviously much easier to let the dogs go out and kind of choose their best friends in playgroup. Doesn't mean if they do well in playgroup that they're not going to be resource guarders in the kennel or that they'll want to live with another dog, but it's a good way to start. There's no guarantee that you won't see those resource guarding issues or territorial issues. Again, I'm going to skip some of these videos because I'm afraid of time. So these are a couple of testimonials. I'm happy to share these slides and you can see the recording. They're going to like overlap themselves a little bit, maybe not. I'm not going to take the time to read these to you, but you should be able to get the recording. Again, if you'd like to get the slides and see this in more detail, I can get them to you. So Dallas Animal Services is the third largest intake in the United States. And this one's important. They need to move quickly and efficiently in order to achieve successful placement. Couldn't be done, in their opinion, without the playgroup program. It's a critical part of their operations with multifaceted benefits. It provides physical outlets to the pets, but it also allows the staff and volunteers to gather an idea of the type of placement opportunities that would benefit them the most. And without playgroup, the information that is so critical to a pet's placement would take time that some of our pets might not have. No other program at DAS is more effective in our shelter operations for placement and evaluation. And so what have shelters experienced when so we've been at this, I did my first playgroup seminar in 2010. Again, we visited over 330 shelters. So 34% of them decrease in their average length of stay for shelters that were running playgroups for 1+ years. A 34% decrease, sorry, not 34% of them. there was a 34% decrease in the average length of stay from our respondents. And then a 4% average rate of increase in canine life saving for shelters that were running playgroups over 1 year. And what we mean by over a year, it means that they were really, the playgroup program was in there, they were doing it. It wasn't like a start and stop. It had become an integral part of their daily routines. And then a 13-day average decrease in large dog length of stay. So that can be huge. And I know the 4% average rate of increase in life saving, maybe not, doesn't seem so huge if you're serving 100 animals a year, but when you're serving 10,000 animals a year, that is a significant amount of lives saved. And you can actually check out the full impact report on our website to give you some more information about that. Do playgroups provide more accurate dog-to-dog assessments? Again, this was a survey that we put out surveys every year, and these are our updated stats. That 98% of the respondents, there were 171 of them, said that they believe that they get better dog-to-dog assessments. 96% believe that playgroups tell them a lot more about the dogs than just their dog-to-dog sociability, and that's out of 169 respondents. Out of 172 respondents, 98% of them said that they feel that they make better adoption matches because of their playgroup implementation. And then I love this one, 99% out of 175 respondents that believe that playgroups contribute to a better quality of life while the dogs are with them. So this is the gist of where are we? Oh, I know we're a little bit late. I was supposed to stop at 8:50, but we started late. So I think I'm pretty much right in line with some Q&A. And this is really why we do playgroups. And I hope I get to be there with some of you for the nitty-gritty of how we get it done and what, why, and how. We just did the why. We've got the how and the what.
Thank you, Amy. That was a really quick whiz through so much content, and the videos just add so much to it because you can tell people how much dogs enjoy playgroups, but it's when you see it that it really makes an impact. Well, for me anyway. One of the things that we find here in Australia is that one of the major problems that the adopters have with dogs is that on lead reactivity, and then of course that goes downhill into problems that when they're walking them in the park or whatever else. So this type of work being done in the shelter, I think, is really, really important for us to be able to show adopters not only what those dogs are actually like, but also how to do it. We can actually involve adopters in, watching the playgroups and showing how people do things, showing them what's normal behavior and what isn't, and actually increasing the level of knowledge about dog-to-dog interactions in the community, because we know that that's a major sort of gap. Not everybody is born with that information. The average Joe dog owner doesn't have that level of information. So for me, dog playgroups can actually go beyond the shelter as well. And having been someone who's owned a number of dogs who were quite dog selective and who were active on lead, if I'd had an opportunity to be able to bring my dog along to something like this and to have him, assessed or have him experience social interactions with known dogs, because what other option do we have? We go down the park and they're all unknown dogs. That would have been incredibly valuable. Really would have been very valuable to get my dog on the path to understanding what the benefits were of being social. And we got him there in the end. But I don't know, there's just a huge range of advantages to playgroups other than just that dog in that shelter, and even that is enough. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of sessions where we can delve into it. But I think this has been a fantastic overview of the whole program. We've got one question here. I don't have a name who it's from, but hi Amy, do you find the appropriate and proper use of tools like e-collars and prong collars give you an advantage in rehabilitating and rehoming more dogs?
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, it has nothing to do with what we presented today in the playgroup
No.
presentation. And I think it's not about any specific tools, but truth be told, I mean, even in our playgroup program, we talk about when we're in the playgroups, if we let dogs be dogs. I'm not dodging your question, don't worry. But when we're in the playgroups and we're talking about letting dogs be dogs, we really do think that our role, we're not in there to positively reinforce the dogs for good behavior. We figure that they are doing that themselves by us staying out of the way and letting them just naturally engage in a playful way, that's where the positive reinforcement comes from. So really, we're there to be hall monitors, and we're there to tell them when they need to slow down or to stop behaviors that are inappropriate and not healthy. And so in the application of playgroups, we run into the use of aversives and how do we do that elegantly and well, and when is it positive punishment? When is it negative reinforcement? So I think the discussion is, I think what I would like to say, we believe in using all tools and techniques to supporting animals to rewardable behavior. And so it's more around the conversation, forget the individual tools. I mean, we can talk about the individual tools, but how are we using them? How are we applying them? Are we getting an increase of the behaviors that we want? Are we decreasing the behaviors that are putting the animals at risk? And what are we really talking about? So yes, I believe that, yes, obviously that's what our program includes. So we believe it's the way to go. And we certainly believe that our hands would be so tied in helping a lot of dogs if we tried to work with only some of the quadrants that we've been provided with.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a dodgy answer? It's
No,
not.
no. Well, yeah, I don't think it does. I mean, one of the things is that if you have a look at, we have an adoption website here in Australia called Pet Rescue, which is like your pet, can't remember the name of it, but you know, where people can jump on and have a look at all the animals for adoption around Australia. And so many of them have, you know, the dogs, restrictions with other dogs. So at the moment, what we're doing is, you know, housing dogs singly, because in most of Australia, co-housing is not the done thing. It used to be back in the day. And there were definite benefits to it. But these days we have some codes of practices in some states that don't allow it. So we're individually housing them where, you know, all of the other impacts of the shelter, and then we take it out, doesn't do well on an assessment, whatever assessment process we're using, and then we write up an adoption profile that says, can't go with kids under 10 or 12, can't go with dogs, probably can't go with cats either. We don't know, but we're, you know, to be on the safe side, let's say it can't. So, you know, suddenly this dog's world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the pool of people who can potentially adopt it. And so some people ignore that and take it home anyway and go and do what they're going to do. And so much of the time it actually does work out okay, or at least not disastrously. But if we had the information, and if that dog had had some guidance before we actually put it out into the community, I feel like we have a real responsibility to do that. That it's, you know, we're taking the responsibility to shelter these dogs, so then we need to take the responsibility to make them the best dog that they can be, to go back out into, you know, into a family, which is what our aim is. So anyway, I'll get off
curiously, curiously, no, I'm right with you. When I first started, I remember we would insist if somebody had a dog at home and they wanted to adopt one of our dogs, they had to come in and do a dog meet.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was before they were doing playgroups. So I'm thinking, kind of like, how dare we? Because we knew nothing about how our dog was going to do with other dogs, right? Until we did playgroups. You talk about risk. So the first time we were going to find out was on the client's dog.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, once we incorporated playgroups, even our dog meets, when we would facilitate adoptions, because we did them just the same way that we did with playgroups. So we weren't doing on-leash introduction or anything. The dogs would be dogs. And so we ended up facilitating so many more adoptions by incorporating the whole playgroup program. And we also allowed, like, if people are struggling at home, they could bring their dogs into the shelter, and we would work their dogs in our shelter playgroups, which were just dog parks, but that were controlled and managed, you know?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think I'm with you, sister. Like,
Yeah.
more
All
knowledge is
the advantages. Okay, more questions are coming in. On the path of dogs being dogs, do you allow humping to occur in the play groups? I noticed in the video with the black and white dog early on, it wasn't intercepted.
Yes, and you stay tuned for more about that black and white dog as the next series continues. Yeah, in fact, people get really funky about the humping. And, you know, again, if we were just, I always say, if we were good Jane Goodalls, remember, I think, you know, think about how she was just observing, right? If we were actually just observing, it really is part of what dogs do. It is, there, oh gosh, who did it? Dr. Merkham did a study of public dog parks. And one of the one of the biggest predictors for aggression in the dog park was not mounting. It was people stepping in to interrupt mounting.
Interrupting it. Yeah.
Yep. It was the highest predictor of the aggression, not the mounting itself. It's what dogs do. In the next one, we talk about what mounting is appropriate and what not, what isn't, and when you would decide to step in.
Yeah, that'll be exciting, I think, because there is a lot of angst around humping, let's say.
But I think it's because people also get embarrassed by it because it is so sexualized in our mind, or they think it's a precursor to aggression.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, another question. Great presentation. Some dog owners use public fenced off-leash areas on the basis that they help dogs socialize, regardless of sociability, confidence and distress. Hard to educate some owners otherwise. So more of a comment than a question, but I think that goes back to what we were saying, that the average Joe dog owner doesn't have many opportunities other than a public play, public park to do this
and they're in parental denial sometimes about their dog's behavior. You know, they might not understand what it all means, and then they don't even know what to do about it.
Yeah. And you know what I'd really love to see from local government animal management, or what you would call animal control perspective, I would love to see some guidance down at our local dog parks, fenced, off-leash parks, to help people with this stuff, because they don't know what to do. And they go down and all kinds of things happen. They take the little kids and, it can be quite dramatic, but it doesn't need to be. If they had some guidance, and that's not the sort of stuff that you can learn when you go to a dog obedience club, or even if you have individual one-on-one training, if you have a trainer come to your house. So that kind of stuff, and for us to make dogs better citizens and be cope better in our increasingly built up urban areas, that stuff's really important, and that's a massive gap here anyway. I don't know about in the States, but it's a huge gap here.
Yeah, we're supposed to be contributing to civil societies. That means we're supposed to be placing companion animals. So people want to get there and be social, get out there and be social with their dogs. Yeah, we should be helping them to get all that right.
Yeah. All right. Another question: for animal rescue / adoption programs that specialize in one breed of dog, how do the benefits change, if they do, for play groups made up of dogs of the same breed as opposed to a mix of breeds?
I mean, I don't know that if that matters much. I mean, I'm sure, as you can see, one of the most popular dogs in America are those blocky-headed dogs here. And so what a myth buster, right? So you can see all of our blocky heads, rolling around in play groups. And what do we know? That there's more, I always get this wrong. There's more variation within breed than between breeds. Is that the right way? Right. So I don't know. We did a golden retriever rescue that was like literally all golden retrievers once. And, we just roll through it the same exact way. It's not that all breeds, you do see tendencies. Sometimes we get into more play styles in the next, I think the number 2. So you won't say that all shepherdy type or herding type dogs are all going to be what we call a push and pull play style, or not all blocky headed dogs are going to be rough and ready play style, right? But you will see a tendency in general. But you don't bank on it. It's just like everything else. You wait to see what it unfolds in front of you and just support them in whatever way they need it, right? You might have a prediction, but you got to be willing to let it go if it ends up being something different. Don't be stuck to the predictions in your head.
Yeah. Okay. Another question, have you had any success with playgroups and greyhounds? Here I work for a greyhound rehoming agency, and providing outlets for play in this context can be difficult when considering a lot of them have very limited learning history, and when socialising with other breeds, we need to factor in play drive. And I don't think that we have Dr. Diana Raymond here, but I tell you what, whoever that is, I'll let Amy answer this in a moment, but if you want to know about greyhound playgroups, you need to chase up Dr. Diana Raymond, because she's done quite a bit of work there, and I can put you in contact if you like. But over to you, Amy.
Yeah, and again, I think with that particular breed, it's not as much, it's not only the, I mean, all dogs have natural predatory drive, right? Some just want to express it, but some we've been trying to tease it out of them more through our breeding and so on and so forth. But I think anytime that you feel like a dog wants to have some playful expression, but might make a mistake with their mouth for whatever reason, that's what muzzles are for. You can always take them off once they learn how to do well. So, and to us, anytime someone wants to maybe hold a leash and try to manage the dog's interactions that way, we would say, let's drop those leashes, put muzzles on, and use good helper dogs and get the human aspect out of it. And so there are ways to help dogs that are going to go to their mouth when they shouldn't. You know, the hardest part about that is, does it end up, you don't want to help one at the expense of the other. So protecting your helper dogs, and we talk about that too, and making sure that they don't get overused, and making sure that they, if they do get, have a bad experience with a dog that behaves badly, then that they get to stay out and play. We call it CPR, continue, play, recover. If a nice little helper dog has been tumbled when you didn't mean for them to, but we get into that in a lot more detail in the how section.
Yeah, that one's really important. I remember doing a consult at a shelter, and they'd actually held a dog back for a year because it was such a good playgroup dog.
Oh no.
It was a ripper of a dog, but they just hammered it with playgroups and wouldn't let it go for adoption because it was so useful. And it's like, that's not the point of us doing the playgroup.
No, that's not the point. We embrace that they fly out the doors.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, another question. Do you feel that playgroups work for all breeds of dogs? Sight hounds can be quite aloof, or have you found breeds that don't like to interact as much?
I don't think it's about the breed. I think it's about the individual dog. I've seen playful dogs in every single kind of breed. I've seen non-playful dogs in every single kind of breed. And again, if you see in our videos how many pit bull type dogs and blocky-headed dogs that we're dealing with, obviously, if they, it's not a breed thing to me. It never will be. It's just about the individual dogs. You might see tendencies of styles, but you can't say these breeds are aggressive, period. It just doesn't ring true from everything I've seen on the ground. And we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs.
That's so interesting. All right, Kate wants to know, do you ever encounter predatory drift in playgroups, and how do you deal with it?
Yes, it can come up. And it's part of the kinds of things that we as the hall monitors are responsible for. Do we have something brewing that could tip that off? And that is, to me, the most dangerous and scariest thing that can happen in a playgroup, is that when you have a dog that becomes prey-like suddenly for whatever reason, sometimes it has nothing to do with interactions with other dogs. Like they got their paw stuck in the fence and they start squeaking, right? And then you get everybody packing up on them. And that is the most frightening experience that I've had. I think I've had two that blew up really fast, and then and in neither of those circumstances did anybody get injured badly, but that was, you get in there quickly to protect them. But so I hope I answered that question correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing that can't be ignored, that's for sure. And I guess what we're about, and what you're about with the program and taking it around to the shelters, and hopefully one day we'll get you here, but is to arm people with the tools and, well, the techniques and the training that they need to be able to deal with those issues. There's no point in us just turning a blind eye and saying, well, this is a terrible thing and this could happen, so we're not going to do it, because the advantages completely outweigh the disadvantages. So let's skill up and learn how to deal with it, and do the best that we can for those dogs in our care.
I mean, listen,
all right, we've got one more question.
Like we get in our cars every day, even though we know there's risk, right? So like, let's be logical here,
Yeah. And for every dog owner, when they
Mhm.
take on a dog, there's a risk. So, let's help them deal with that. We'll do one more question and we'll let Amy go. I didn't tell everybody, it is what, 8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that, where Amy is. She's at the end of her day. She needs to go and sit down and have a glass of wine. So Melanie says, will you be talking about fight breaking up techniques in the next webinars?
That one is part 3. And yes, we do. Very
Part
explicitly.
3. Okay, so hang in there.
Mhm.
All right, we're going to let you go, Amy. So appreciative of your time tonight. We've had a really good turnout. We've had 84 registrants for the webinar, which is wonderful. And we really appreciate it. I'm sorry about the tech issues to begin with, but we very much looking forward to seeing you next month. Everybody that's here, thank you so much for coming along. Keep an eye on the e-news and social media. We'll put out the details for the second presentation very soon. Encourage your colleagues and your friends to come along. It's the 19th of October. So put that in the calendars now, and we will see you next month. Take care, everybody. And thanks again, Amy.
Thank you so much.